for Cucnato on your right playing Reanimator.
Now, what other monsters does he have access to besides Grizzlebrand? I mean, obviously 4 Grizzlebrands is kind of a standard, but...
An Elish Norn, an Iona, a Tidesprout Tyrant, and a Grave Titan.
Oh, I always like Grave Titan. Grave Titan's like the best creature for taking over the board against people who have... if you just want a value, if you just want to comes into playability.
Do you think that Grave Titan is primarily in the deck against an active Liliana?
It is a fantastic one against Liliana. Against anybody who has access to stuff like that could kill, that could potentially kill a single creature. Otherwise, what are you going to get? Tidespout Tyrant on a good day could bounce Liliana, but that's not always, that's not always enough.
All right, so we might be going already here.
It is the second turn.
Here is Show and Tell.
And he doesn't know what Robert has, so he doesn't actually know that Robert's playing Reanimator yet. Yeah. This could go poorly.
Adam Johnson playing Show and Tell. He has incorporated 2 main deck copies of Jason the Mind Sculptor. We've seen Todd Anderson do this in recent Legacy Opens to good effect. Here's a Force of Will.
Wow, and Force of Will, pitching Force of Will is very, reveals a lot of information about your deck.
And Adam is going to Spell Pierce back. This is a busted Legacy opening from both of these players.
So are we looking at a possible brainstorm to go look for a fatty to put into play?
Well, it appears that Robert already has Grizzlebrand in hand, but he's worried about, of course, what happens if Adam gets to go first.
Oh, and has the Emrakul in play too. Like if Adam has an Emrakul, Robert's Grizzlebrand might not be enough. Or if both players put down a Grizzlebrand, Adam gets to play more cards this turn.
Yeah, he has the initiative.
We've seen a lot of Necropotence variants over the course of the weekend. Erebos, God of the Dead, Underworld Connections. The thing I like about Grizzlebrand is that it doesn't even have any pretense of being realistic.
Right. And that was probably not what Anna was anticipating after seeing an opponent struggle so hard fighting over the Show and Tell.
And he still has a Force Will backup. It's almost like he wanted to fight, but not too much.
Right.
Just enough.
He wanted to throw some jabs.
Absolutely, just get it warmed up. What's he gonna put in the yard? Tidespout Tyrant. He wants.
Oh boy.
So, Grizzlebrand's gonna draw a lot of cards.
Yeah, and there's a Tidesprout Tyrant in the graveyard.
So that's a whole thing.
I think Adam was probably anticipating, something like Baleful Strix getting put into play here. All right, the first of possibly several draw 7s from Robert. I gotta say, after a couple rounds of counterbalance, I could really go for this. Here's Exhume.
Robert, with Tidespout Tyrant, Adam was very ready to concede. Just needs to be shown. Looks like Lotus Petal is gonna, yeah.
Yeah, again, you have to imagine that if you're in Adam's seat, you did not expect it to go quite like this.
I don't know, he pitched a Show and Tell. I would have just called the whole thing off. If the guy Force of Will's showing a Show and Tell, I don't even, I just stop and let's regroup. Let's,
Well, it might mean that he has nothing going on.
Yeah, I know, but it also means he's deranged. He just pitched a Show and Tell. Like, Show and Tell's what you're casting. This is, I don't know. I think you got to call the whole thing off.
Anyhow, Robert Cucnato quickly up a game. A turn 2 kill facilitated by his opponent's Show and Tell. Moving on to the sideboard. I have Adams in front of me, 3 copies of Blood Moon and Echoing Truth, 2 Swan Songs, a Fluster Storm, 2 Graftricker's Cage, 3 Pyroclasm, 2 copies of Blue Elemental Blast, and a Red Elemental Blast. A lot to work with here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got to bring in most of his standard anti-combo type of cards like Pyroblast. What I wonder, all the usual stuff, Pyroblast, Swan Song, if he wants it. What I wonder, though, is there any chance that it's time to Blood Moon? Like, these Reanimator decks have both Lotus Petal and some basics, so they're not the most vulnerable to it.
Yeah, the problem, I think, with Blood Moon here is that Adam already has to bring in a fair amount of disruption, more counter spells and Grafdigger's Cages and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's only so much of his deck he can take out before he starts not being able to combo off. So there's some marginal cards that I think he has to stay away from. Blood Moon has spots against Reanimator. I mean, they do have some basics, but their mana is a little stretched. They are generally compelled to go get Underground Seas, but I just don't think Adam has that kind of room to bring in a card like that.
On the other side, Robert Cucnato has Inkwell, Leviathan, Crippling Fatigue, Massacre, Ashen Rider, Spell Pierces, Pithing Needles, Duresses, Show and Tell, and City of Traders.
I love the Crippling Fatigue in the sideboard. Not for this matchup, but that is a great addition.
Oh yeah, Crippling Fatigue, because sometimes you need to entomb and go get an answer to, a creature.
Meddling Mage or...
potentially any sorts of things like Gray Ogre.
Yeah, kills them all.
Inkwell Leviathan, probably not what we're going to see here.
Yeah, Inkwell is a little bit more for the, my Reanimator targets aren't that great against you because you have a lot of spot removal or ways to disrupt me, so I just want a big Shroud creature.
Ashen Rider, though. Ashen Rider I like for the prospect of actually dealing with Emrakul.
And it's also just, it's a great playoff of Show and Tell.
Absolutely. And what's funny is, Adam may be taking out his Show and Tells. Is it possible that Robert brings some in? I mean, that's one of his usual anti-graveyard hate plans. It's risky in this matchup, but...
I wouldn't go near it.
No?
I think he can just win with his conventional game plan. I think he just wants the Duresses, Spell Pierces, the Needles potentially is a good answer to Sneak Attack.
What does he do about the cage?
He can remove it from before it enters play, I suppose. Maybe he has to keep in a couple copies.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he needs. Oh, I guess he's got 2 Show and Tell's main deck, but I think he needs some amount main deck, or else he's on the Cast Grave Titan plan.
Yeah, it's not shabby. I mean, it's big. Once it's in play, All right, Adam's stepping away from the table momentarily, so we'll find out what's happening. Probably just taking a quick break, and we will be returning to the booth momentarily. Welcome back, Patrick Sullivan, Patrick Jabin, Star City Games Legacy Open in Detroit in the D. How's it feel to be home?
It's so cold in the D. It's actually not even that bad. It's like 55 degrees out.
Yeah, it's totally nice out.
Yeah, no, I love Detroit. I do. It's funny because like I've lived in Denver, lived in Milwaukee, been a few other places, and it does feel like home to be in Detroit.
Yeah. Central New Jersey is still the same thing for me. It just never changes,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was crushing when the New Jersey Open got canceled earlier this year for weather concerns for me. So,
yeah, I gotta say, what I love is the showing of the Detroit crowd. Yesterday we had 596 for the Standard Open. Obviously, smaller attendance today. It is Easter. Some number of people out there doing Easter-like things. Do we have any footage of some of the Easter egg roll earlier? Was that us, or was that the cheerleading convention next door?
That was the cheerleading convention. That wasn't us, if I recall correctly.
Detroit is definitely pretty awesome, though. Legacy kind of reminds me of Detroit. It's like as dangerous as Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, Legacy, you could just be like walking down the street minding your own business, and your opponent just puts a Grizzlebrand in play when you were going to show them that you're Emrakul. You know?
Or you're casting a Mother of Runes, let's say. You're trying to play something resembling Honest Magic, and someone
I would not cast Mother of Runes. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
I would not. I'm just saying, one could.
Yes.
And one often does.
Yeah, it's legal, and there are those who do.
All right, Adam is back.
Mother of Runes is kind of like a white goblin welder. It's like this 1/1 with this absolutely just unreal ability that just completely wins games, and my God, should you never cast it.
Yeah. Mother of Runes, I think, presupposes a lot about what your opponent wants to be doing. Mother of Runes is really good at protecting your creatures. That assumes your opponent has any interest in concerning themselves with creatures, which is a big presupposition in Legacy.
Here's a question for you. Which is going to top 8, which will be the next of these 2 cards to top 8 an SCG Open?
Okay.
Mindslaver?
Okay.
Or Greatest Fears? Greatest Fears being the new Mindslaver, 7 and a black sorcery from Journey into Nyx. You control target player's next turn.
I would
Exile.
I would take the Journey to Nyx card because I think it's more likely that shows up as a singleton and some control sideboard, then Mindslaver shows up in a successful Legacy deck.
Interesting. Because we've seen Mindslaver show up in some of these 37 land decks, 42 land decks or whatever, as a one of in the sideboard.
Yeah. Although now with Dark Depths, Thespian Sage, they don't need
Yep.
to go through nearly those kind of hoops to win the game.
And as long as Brian DeMars is out there fighting a good fight, there's still the potential of just a straight up Mindslaver lock in a control deck.
Some Academy Ruins, just
Yeah,
the
whatever it takes.
grindhouse.
Whatever you got to do. Absolutely. Gifts ungiven. Let's go get Academy Ruins and Mindslaver and Life from the Loam.
I've watched Brian play some really grindy decks in Legacy tournaments.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Brian, excellent deck builder, very well known for his prowess in the Eternal formats, and one of Michigan's own. Definitely no stranger to the Mindslaver.
Although something of a limited expert as well. Grand Prix champion. Yeah.
Grand Prix, was it Boston?
Yeah, Worcester or wherever that was held.
Yeah, Grand Prix Worcester. He's been kind of just drafting nonstop for the last few years, and definitely on a tear in that department.
There's a lot of players out there that you know them for their constructed game, but actually quietly have built up quite the limited resume. Shaheen Sarani is one of those. You think about him just playing Esper all the time. He won something like 6 or 7 draft opens back when those were a thing.
He won 6 or 7 draft opens?
He won a ton of them. A ton of them.
Wow.
He was on some absurd heater in those.
I guess so.
All right, well, Robert is mulliganed.
Can't preordain in that format.
You cannot.
Lotus Petal, Volcanic Island, Grafter's Cage.
Pretty strong opening here from Adam.
All right, Adam is apparently not joking around.
He's had 2 great starts.
Yes, he has. Hopefully this game he doesn't kill himself on the second turn.
Here's a Swamp and a Petal and a Thoughtseize.
I mean, Cage is just devastating to Robert's strategy.
Yeah. Flusterstorm and 2 lands. This is a very classic show and tell opening of, I don't really have anything going on, but hopefully I can find it.
Yeah, I mean, he went off on turn 1. He successfully stuck the Cage. Just imagine how different this game would be if Robert had been on the play.
Yep.
Misty Rainforest added to the battlefield.
So now Adam needs to find both an enabler and something to put into play. He's asking a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's got show and tell, but he's also got just hang out and eventually cast Grave Titan. I mean, casting Tidespout Tyrant or Grizzlebrand is also an option. It's just hard to do. Elishnorn and Iona are right out. I guess Lotus Petal, right? I mean, if you get enough Lotus Petals, anything is possible. It's like
It's
Kevin
true.
Garnett.
Yeah. It's quite similar. There's a second Petal.
I mean, we're so close to Troning up right now. Is that just that's just a mountain, an unhinged mountain just chilling?
Yep. Some of these lists have a mountain. A little bit of Wasteland protection because you often have to play Sneak Attack, tapping out, and then Wasteland can break it up.
Oh yeah, I just love it being in between the Lotus Petal and the City of Traders because it looks vaguely not land-like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's Legacy players with the psychological warfare.
A land and a Thoughtseize.
Obviously, a revised basic swamp on Robert's side of the table, not to be one-upped by Adam Johnson.
Those were my first swamps.
Yeah.
Yep. So we know Adam has a Flusterstorm in hand.
I actually was the guy who, I had unlimited swamps at first, and I switched to Revise because I just liked them better, looked better, coloring, and of course, once Ice Age came out, forget about it. Black bordered swamps,
I didn't like the Ice Age artwork, but when Mirage came out, that was it for me. The Mirage basic lands look great.
Do you remember Mirage Dark Rituals?
Yep.
I mean, obviously the original Dark Ritual is a classic, but Mirage Dark Ritual
I prefer the
It's a hot
Tempest one.
Oh, yeah. Tempest was pretty sweet, too. And they just used to print Dark Ritual just continuously.
Counterspell, too, just in every set. We just need to make sure that everyone has 4 of these when they start playing Magic. We can't let them lapse.
Yeah.
All right, there's a hard cast Force of Will.
Adam Johnson with tons of mana, enough mana to cast almost any creature in Robert Cucnato's deck.
All right, gonna start off with an alternate cast Gitaxian Probe. Careful Study, Force of Will, Tide Sprout Tyrant, and Lotus Petal.
So what do you think about just casting Gitaxian Probe for the life there instead of, paying one of your 9 mana?
You never know. I'm fine with this.
Because he's nowhere close to being able to cast like Grizzlebrand or Emrakul.
He has 2 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor in his deck, so if he
Sure.
casts the Gitaxian Probe, he then would have to sack a Petal to cast Jace.
Sure.
So I'm fine with this. And you also have chaining cantrips as a thing that can happen too.
Absolutely. What is he looking for here? I mean, is Sneak Attack the plan, Jace?
Well, Jace would be the best place to start, in my opinion, because it would essentially ward a counterspell on its own without generating any risk of something bad happening, like a Ken would show and tell. So I would assume that Jace is a great starting place here for Adam. But Robert's, Sneak Attack's a very good route here as well. Robert just has the Force of Will at this point. Adam says that he does not like what he sees with that Ponder, shuffles up.
What about Robert? What's he looking for here? I mean, he's stuck under this cage, so most of his game plan is shut down.
Yeah, he needs to, some way to get off the table or a show and tell. Again, Adam's shown that he doesn't really have a lot going on.
See, I always like Jace the Mind Sculptor in the sideboard of the Reanimator decks.
Just to be able to play a normal game plan when your opponent's overloading you on sideboard hate.
Right, exactly. A lot of them get they slow down so much. There's so much, there's so many reactive cards, and there's a lot of just stalling out. Jace can just single-handedly take over the game. And even when you're not going to ride the Jace all the way to victory, it can help you assemble whatever your other plan is.
Yeah. All right, so Robert's still passing the turn. Brainstorm the draw for Adam. I believe there's a Grizzlebrand amongst those cards.
With the recent wave of just unbelievable sideboard hate, graveyard hate, like Scavenging Ooze, Grafdigger's Cage, and Rest in Peace, how long do you think it'll be until they make another stone cold killer? Like another graveyard hate card that's in the same league as Grafdigger's Cage, Rest in Peace, and Scavenging Ooze?
I would say either the next block or the block after.
You don't think they're going to waste any time? They're
No,
going
it's
to keep the hits coming?
Sure. Graveyard strategies are, occasionally pretty frustrating to be playing against because they ignore most common forms of interaction. And Legacy is chock full of very powerful graveyard-oriented decks. Modern is as well. Birthing Pod isn't really a graveyard deck necessarily, but does use its graveyard for good effect. It's just good to have some insurance against that sort of stuff. And even the Gordios Vengeance stuff can be very fast in Modern. Even though that deck doesn't get the profile of a lot of other decks, it is very fast. Ponder here from Robert after careful saying. And Robert keeps. So Adam gonna go ahead here and crack his tarn at the end of the turn, finds an island. Again, both players not up to very much. Adam kept a hand with Grafdigger's Cage and nothing really proactive. Robert shut down by the cage, and so these decks that look so fast and explosive in game one are now playing a much different game in game two.
Yeah, was this really the matchup where it ended on turn 2 last game?
Yes, on the
I mean,
second
that's
turn.
Night and day compared to this game. But I guess this is what happens when you play a cage on turn 1.
With no way to really proactively push the game besides that.
Right.
So is it possible to hard cast the Grizzlebrand? Yes, it is.
In the show and tell deck? I mean, in
And
the
Roberts in the Reanimator deck.
Oh yeah, the Reanimator deck has. I mean, he's only got 4 basic land, but he's got 4 Underground Seas, and that alone is enough, not even needing a pedal.
So we have a plan B.
And that's why you need Blood Moon.
This is Duress shows Grizzlebrand's Swan Song.
One of the big advantages of Reanimator. It's easier to cast Grizzlebrand than it is in the show and tell deck.
Yeah, it's a huge edge. I mean, he's up to 6 mana. Here's a Ponder.
Kind of doing it.
Finds there's a sneak attack amongst the cards. I like the Stone Cold Killer graveyard sideboard hate. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it was surprising to see something that finally could compete with Leyline of the Void.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Leyline of the Void is as stone cold as they come. The nice thing about Deathrite Shaman and Scavenging Ooze is that they're so main deckable.
Yeah.
But Rest in Peace is just like sending them a message, and the message is just loud and clear. Like everybody out of the pool.
So Gataxian Probe shows Force of Will Tidesprout Tyrant, so Robert can still defend himself from Adam trying to go off. Let's see if Adam can do anything here.
I mean, how do you even one-up Rest in Peace? Just make a 1-mana 2/1 that when it comes into play exiles their graveyard, and whenever a card would go to the graveyard, instead it doesn't.
Yeah, it has to be cheaper, right? Rest in Peace is 2 mana. That's a lot of mana as far as these kind of cards are concerned. There's a big draw from Robert there, Pithy Needle. And if this Pithy Needle resolves, things get a little tricky for Adam. Sneak Attack is no longer an option, presumably, and Show and Tell is fraught with peril. So Adam's in a bit of trouble here.
Absolutely, and he actually had the Sneak Attack, right?
Yeah. He saw last turn that he couldn't cast it in the face of the Force of Will.
Yep. So now he figures the coast is clear, the Pithy Needle's down, might as well stick the Sneak Attack out there.
And Adam does have a copy of Echoing Truth in his sideboard. Presumably he brought it in here against Reanimator, so. Both players just kind of saying go.
This is why you can't let these decks take more than like 2 turns. Because then they want to take a bunch.
Right. Another copy of Sneak Attack. Here's a Careful Study. You have to imagine Robert's getting to the point where that's the plan here, is hard casting one of these big creatures.
I mean, he just discarded Entomb and Animate Dead.
Right. He's not even trying to fight over the Scrapdigger's Cage. It's going to be...
Right, he has no illusions.
Here's a Brainstorm. This is a tough spot for Adam.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Pithy Needle shutting down Sneak Attack when he very likely boarded out all of his Show and Tells. I mean, how many answers does he actually have? He's got the 1 Echoing Truth.
Yep.
What else? 2 Jaces as a backup plan, I guess.
And who even knows if those are still in the deck? One assumes, but not 100%.
Right. It looks like that's actually it. And he cannot cast Grizzlebrand. Oh, he can. He has exactly 4 Lotus Petals. Can he actually cast Emrakul? 3, 4, 7. He can cast Emrakul if he has at least, like if he has a bunch of Ancient Tombs.
Robert now up to 7 mana in play. What a crazy game. There's a man at number 8, and Robert might be making his move right now.
Is this the showdown?
Just casts something. Going to sack both of his fetch lands. What a way to go out.
And he has Force of Will to protect this, right?
I don't know if he has a backup blue card.
He does, Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
it's a
there-
Tidespell Tyrant. Sure, that'll play.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful. That one can actually be red blasted, though.
Well, Robert's got to cast what he has, you know?
Adam decides not to commit a third sneak attack to the board, saving it for a possible brainstorm.
And now Robert has the capability, I don't know if he has enough backup here, of bouncing the Graph Digger's Cage and actually starting to do some things.
Yep.
But he may just win with the Tidespell Tyrant beatdowns.
Tidespell Tyrant. It's a pretty good deal for 8 mana.
Now this is actually what's cool about Legacy in my mind is that there are games that take these really, that just have a weirdness and texture all to their own.
Yeah, there's a lot of unique games. There's a lot of games played in Legacy that nobody's ever played before.
Yep.
You're always blazing a new trail in Legacy.
And there it is. Robert Cucnato wins on the back of a hard cast Tidesprout Tyrant, 2-0 over Adam Johnson playing Show and Tell.
Definitely a strong showing.
So 5-0, great position here. Again, 8-round tournament here. We had 225.